My name is Sawapa. I'm 69 years old, and I want to tell you something that I kept hidden in plain sight for most of my adult life. Not hidden in a drawer or behind a locked door, hidden in the ordinary, in the unremarkable, in the everyday objects that surrounded me in my home without me ever truly understanding what they carried or what they were capable of doing. I walked past this object every single day for years. I dusted around it. I moved it from one surface to another without thinking. And all that time, without knowing what I was doing, I was ignoring one of the most powerful instruments of energetic attraction that I could have been using. What I am about to share with you today is not something I invented. It is not something I read once in a book and decided to believe. It is something I discovered through my own life, through my own losses and recoveries, through my own desperate searching for understanding in the years when nothing in my financial life seemed to move, no matter how hard I tried. And it is something that, when I finally understood it fully and used it with genuine intention, began to change things in ways I had stopped believing were possible. But before I tell you what the object is, I need to tell you where I was when I found it. Because the where matters. Because the state of a person when they receive a truth determines how deeply that truth can take root. I was 52 years old. I had spent nearly 3 decades working, building, saving, trying. I had done everything that a responsible woman with a family was supposed to do. And yet there was a ceiling in my financial life that I could not break through. Every time things began to look up, something would happen. An expense I hadn't anticipated, a plan that dissolved before it fully formed, a door that opened just enough for me to see what was on the other side and then swung closed before I could step through. I was not a careless person. I was not someone who spent without thinking or made decisions without consideration. And yet the ceiling remained. And the ceiling was exhausting me in a way that was deeper than tiredness. It was exhausting my hope. The quiet, private hope that a different financial reality was possible for me. It was during that period that I went to visit an elderly relative I hadn't seen in several years. She was in her 80s, a woman who had lived through genuine hardship in ways that made my difficulties look small, and who had nevertheless arrived at a kind of ease and peace in her later years that I found almost impossible to understand. Her home was modest, but it felt abundant. It felt like a space where the air itself was somehow more generous. I noticed something on her windowsill that I had never paid attention to before. A small object, simple, humble, nothing that would catch the eye of a casual visitor. She saw me looking at it and smiled in the way that very old people smile when they know something that younger people haven't understood yet. I asked her about it, and what she told me that afternoon became one of the most important conversations of my life. She said, "Every home has a language. The objects you choose to keep, the places you put them, the intention you give them or don't give them. All of that is your home speaking. And your home's language reaches into your life and shapes it in ways you cannot see but very much feel. I asked her to explain, and she did, slowly, with the patience of someone who has lived long enough to know that real understanding cannot be rushed. What she described was the ancient understanding found in traditions across Asia, across the Mediterranean, across indigenous cultures of many continents, that certain objects carry specific energetic qualities. Not because they are magical in themselves, but because they have been used across generations as physical anchors for intention, as tangible symbols that speak to the subconscious mind in a language that bypasses rational argument and lands directly in the place where belief lives. The object she kept on her windowsill, the one I had noticed without knowing why it caught my attention, was a small bowl of coins. Not a bank account, not a savings ledger, a physical, visible, touchable bowl of actual coins placed deliberately in a specific location in her home, tended to with a specific kind of attention, and charged with a clear and consistent intention. It sounds almost absurdly simple, and that was exactly what made it so powerful. Because simplicity, when it is done with genuine presence and genuine belief, bypasses the complicated resistance that our analytical minds construct against things that seem too easy to be real. She explained the significance of what she kept and how she kept it. The bowl itself was not decorative. It was functional in the energetic sense. A bowl is open at the top. A bowl receives. A bowl does not hoard or close or protect. It simply holds, openly, available, ready to receive more. In the understanding of energy and abundance that these ancient traditions held, a bowl of coins placed in the home is a constant, visible, physical declaration. This is a home that receives. This is a home where abundance is welcome. This is a space that is open to prosperity rather than closed against it. But the coins were not simply dropped in. Each one had been placed with awareness, with a moment of genuine acknowledgement that money is not the enemy, not the source of all problems, not something to be feared or mistrusted, but a form of energy that flows toward where it is welcomed and treated with respect. And the placement mattered, not in a rigid, prescriptive way, but in a way that made practical, energetic sense. She kept hers where the morning light could reach it, because light, in almost every tradition that has thought carefully about these things, represents clarity, visibility, and the illumination of what you are calling toward you. Abundance placed in the light becomes visible to the energies that are seeking a home. After that afternoon, I went home and I looked at my own home with completely different eyes. What was the language of my home speaking? I had a tendency, I discovered, to keep anything related to money in places of stress and shadow. Bills on the kitchen table where I ate, debt reminders near the telephone, financial papers in a pile that communicated visually and energetically, crisis and overwhelm. My home was speaking the language of financial fear, and it had been speaking it consistently for years without me ever noticing. I began to change the language. I found a small ceramic bowl that felt right in my hands. Not expensive, not elaborate, but solid and open and beautiful in a simple way. I placed in it several coins, not as a significant sum, but as a symbol, as a declaration. I chose coins that were clean and whole, not bent or tarnished or collected carelessly, because the quality of what you offer as a symbol matters. You do not invite prosperity with objects that communicate carelessness or disrespect. I placed the bowl near the window in my main room, where the morning light came through first. And before I set it down, I held it in both hands for a moment. I felt the weight of the coins. I thought about what they represented, not just their monetary value, the energy of exchange, the energy of provision, the energy of work rewarded and effort recognized. And I said, in my own words, without ceremony or performance, simply and honestly, this home is open to abundance. What belongs here is welcome here. Then I set it down and I left it. I did not hover over it anxiously. I did not check it every morning with desperate hope. I simply allowed it to be there, to do what a symbol does when it is placed with genuine intention and left to work in the quiet background of daily life. But I want to tell you something important about what happened next, because I think it is the most instructive part of the story. The first thing that changed was not my financial situation. It was my relationship with my financial situation. I began to feel a slight but noticeable shift in how I thought about money when I walked through my own home. The bowl was a daily visual reminder that I had made a decision, that I had declared something, that I was not simply reacting to the financial reality I had been living in. I was actively, physically, energetically choosing a different one. And that shift in inner stance began to produce shifts in outer behavior. I reached out to someone about an opportunity I had been hesitating over for months, not because the bowl gave me courage, but because the act of placing the bowl had been an act of deciding. And people who have decided tend to act differently than people who are still waiting to decide. I began to handle my actual finances with more care, not more anxiety, more care, more respect. The bowl had begun to change how I thought about money as a whole, and that changed how I treated it in its practical form. I began to notice opportunities I had been overlooking, not because they were new, because my attention had shifted slightly. When you are in a relationship of fear with money, your attention is always on the threat, on what might go wrong, on what is already insufficient. When your inner stance shifts, even slightly, toward openness and expectation, your attention shifts with it, and it begins to notice what had always been there but was previously filtered out. Within 4 months, my financial situation had moved in 3 specific ways that I had not engineered through any external strategy. A long-standing source of income that had been irregular became consistent. An expense that had been weighing on me found an unexpected resolution. And a relationship with someone who would later become an important professional connection began in a conversation I had almost declined to have. Were these changes caused by a bowl of coins on a windowsill? I do not claim that. What I claim is that the bowl was the physical anchor for a decision to change my inner relationship with prosperity, and that inner change produced the outer ones, because inner change always produces outer change. This is not mysticism. This is the simple observation of someone who has paid attention to the relationship between inner state and outer reality across a long life of genuine experience. I want to tell you now about the specific qualities that make this practice work, because you deserve the understanding and not just the story. The object must be chosen with presence, not grabbed randomly, not placed carelessly. You must choose it as a physical representative of something you genuinely intend. Feel it in your hands. Know why you are choosing it. Let the act of choosing be the first act of intention. The placement must be deliberate, not forced according to someone else's rigid system. Chosen by you for your home, in a location that feels right, that receives light, that is a space you walk past regularly, so that your awareness registers it often. Frequent, low-level awareness of an intention embedded in an object is one of the most effective ways the subconscious mind receives and integrates new belief. The coins or objects within it must be treated with respect. Clean them occasionally. Add to them sometimes. Remove them and replace them. Treat the bowl as something alive, something tended, something that requires your continued attention and not just a one-time gesture. And most importantly, your relationship with the object must be one of genuine intention and not superstitious dependency. The bowl is not doing the work, you are. The bowl is holding the intention that you placed in it, reminding you of the decision you made, keeping the declaration visible in the physical world so that your subconscious does not forget it in the noise of daily life. That is the secret that most people miss when they try these practices and find them ineffective. They place the object, they forget the intention. They wait for the object to perform, and when nothing happens, they conclude the practice is false. But you cannot outsource intention. You cannot delegate belief to a bowl of coins and go back to your habitual relationship with scarcity and fear. The object is the anchor. You are the ship. And a ship that does not want to move will not be held in place by an anchor. It will drag it. Move with intention. Let the anchor hold you in the frequency of that intention. And watch what becomes possible when those two things work together. There is one more thing I want to share before I close, because it is perhaps the most personal part of what I have learned. The bowl on my windowsill has been there for many years now. It has changed locations once when we moved. It has changed vessels twice, as I found ones that felt more aligned with what it represents. The coins in it have turned over many times, some given away, some added fresh. But what has never changed is the intention I renew each time I pass it. The quiet internal acknowledgement that this home is open, that I am open, that prosperity is welcome here and will be treated with respect when it arrives. That renewal, so small it takes no more than a second, has kept the declaration alive. And a declaration kept alive becomes a belief, and a belief becomes a frequency, and a frequency becomes a reality. Your home is already speaking a language. Every corner, every surface, every object you have chosen or accumulated or neglected to remove is part of that language. And the question worth sitting with today is this: what is your home saying about your relationship with prosperity? If something in these words has touched you, if you recognized in my story something of your own, I want to invite you to stay in this space. Come back when you need to be reminded of the deeper dimension of financial life that most conversations never reach. Subscribe and walk with me, because I have spent nearly 7 decades gathering these truths and I am not finished sharing them. And tonight, before you sleep, walk slowly through your home. Look at it as a language. Look at what it is saying, and ask yourself whether you are ready to begin speaking a different one. You can begin with something small, a bowl, a window, a handful of coins placed with presents, and with the honest, dignified declaration that you are ready to receive what you have been calling in. The object is waiting. The intention is yours to place. And the life that becomes possible when both of those things come together is more available to you than you may have yet allowed yourself to believe. I believe it for you because I have lived it myself, and that is the only evidence that has ever truly mattered to me.